Morning, and welcome to my tutelage, where we take our education seriously, ourselves lightly, and our coffee with a healthy splash of almond milk. My name is Madeline, and I am a tutor, although I do moonlight as a reader. My tongue is often in my cheek, and my bookmark is currently in this book of T.S. Eliot's poetry. Today, I'm completing my case for reading old books. If you haven't already, pick out a book that is at least 10 times your age. So if you're 16 years old, pick a book that's 160 years old or published before 1861. I've already argued that reading old books will help you become more educated and empathetic. Now let me say, old books are entertaining. Their authors knew how to transport an audience so that when you read Jane Eyre's passionate speech of that she is, Mr. Rochester's equal, you feel like it's coming from you, or at least that's how I feel when I read it. You get caught up in the characters, and the plot, and the description, and many of these old authors were not afraid to write purple prose, unlike some spare, minimalist, simple writing styles. They didn't think that just poetry should be pretty. They were not afraid of getting a little bit flowery. And on the other side, much of the world's best satire and much of the world's best tragedy, all of these things, a lot of it comes from different eras. I've laughed hard and I've cried hard at old stories. I am a big Jane Austen fan, partly because we are both students of the absurd, and human absurdity has not changed much in the past 220 years. We might dress differently. On the surface we might have different aspirations than they did, but many of us are still hoping for love and success and prosperity, and we hope that our neighbors will admire us instead of laugh at us. And yet our pursuit of love and success and prosperity can make us quite ridiculous, for what do we live for but to make sport for our neighbors and to laugh at them in our turn? The characters in old books will inspire you to courage or disgust you with their selfishness. They'll lead you to examine yourself and wonder what you would do in their situation. All good stories do this. I'm certainly not arguing that modern authors don't do this, but there's something special about these time-tested books that we still read decades and centuries after they were written. Have you ever had the experience of reading a book, any book, and while you were reading it, and immediately after you were reading it, you thought, yeah, that's a really good book, and then after about 6 months, you look back on it and you think, that book really wasn't that good. It didn't stay with you. You might just then reevaluate it to say that, it was a fun read, a light read, maybe a guilty pleasure read, but it wasn't the sort of book that you're going to want to pick up over and over again throughout your life. Reading old books is like that on a cultural and historical level. Many authors write good books for their cultural moment, but a few decades or centuries later, they've lost their relevance, and they don't really have enough transcendent human material to make them last. But the other books that we're still reading after decades or centuries or millennia, these clearly contain something a little more. A brief caveat. Many talented authors never had breakout success because of prejudice and lack of opportunity. Few women writers gained much traction before the 1800s, and people of color were even more excluded from publishing. It's tragic to think about how many great artists simply have never been because they were not educated or taught to read, let alone given time to write and create. This is unjust, and I think that we who love old books should lament the voices that are missing from past centuries. However, I do not think that the solution is to not read old books. I can lament that not everyone shared the privileges of station, education, race, sex, and leisure enjoyed by Alfred Lord Tennyson. But that does not undermine the beauty and power of his poetry. It's a false justice that says that because many voices from past generations were unjustly silenced, therefore we should silence all voices from the past. I do hope that you enjoy reading an old book, but you don't have to love the stories. Your opinion of the stories may change, and you may pick up a dud. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's good. I hated and mocked Jane Eyre the first time I read it. I might at some point save that delicious book report that had my teacher in tears. I think of humor. But now, Jane Eyre is one of my favorite books, and I'll be using it for a tutorial soon on how you can use old books to prepare for the SAT. So please don't read these books to impress anyone. Don't read them just to improve your test scores. Read them because at least one of them, somewhere, might be your new favorite book. If you liked this video series, please feel free to subscribe. I'll be posting new videos like this one each week. You can also check me out on Instagram and WordPress at roadstainedfeet, where I share a lot of my opinions on books and such. Until next time, this has been my tutelage.